Meep.
Wednesday is a show I've been trying to understand the appeal of for the better part of 3 years. I don't mean that in an how could people like this crap type of way. No, I mean it from a place of genuine fascination. I tried watching the first season back when it premiered in 2022, and I got through the first 3 episodes or so and thought, this is cute, it's nice. Not enough for me to keep watching it, but still, I'm happy it exists. And then, suddenly, the show exploded in popularity, quickly becoming Netflix's second most watched series of all time. I chalked the show's initial popularity up to things like, Tim Burton and Jenna Ortega both draw a crowd, Addams Family is a well-known IP, so maybe people like me were just curious to see what it was all about. But with season 2 having just wrapped, the show's popularity seems to be maintaining quite strongly. This is no flash in the pan. It's now an undeniably well-loved show. Which made me go back to my initial viewing experience and ask myself, did I miss something? I mean, why this show? So I went back and watched both seasons in their entirety, and now that I've fully experienced it for myself, I think I can definitively say that I'm still a little confused. Part of my fascination with this show is that Wednesday seems like the type of thing that would be right up my alley. I'm a sucker for a mystery thriller, especially one with horror elements, and I'm also an easy target for anything that evokes that fall, Halloween time atmosphere. And on the second point, Wednesday excels, mostly in the first season. The set design, in particular, is just marvelous a lot of the time. Nothing seemed out of place or intangible, and I really felt like, by the end of the show, I understood the landscape of both Nevermore Academy and the town of Jericho as a whole. They're fully fleshed out and lived in, which of course was only enhanced by the cinematography, which was consistently fine to good, but in moments was genuinely breathtaking. There are some gorgeous shots and sequences here and there that really serve the mood and atmosphere quite well. And I would also like to note that while severely underutilized in favor of some pretty bad pop song needle drops, Danny Elfman and Chris Bacon each composed some great music for the series. Like the set design and cinematography, the score complements the tone of the show so well and really ties the rest of its strengths together. And the one thing about this show that seems unanimously agreed upon is Jenna Ortega's performance. She is pitch perfect in this show. It would be easy to understate how difficult a balancing act performing a character like Wednesday is. In fact, in general, Wednesday as a protagonist is much more of a creative challenge than I think many fully take into account. Taking a character who normally functions either as a side character or as part of an ensemble and putting them into the spotlight as the protagonist is no small task, as it runs the risk of ruining what made them so appealing in the first place through oversaturation. CJ the X talks about this quite a bit in their video The Kronk Effect, which I highly recommend. On top of that, with the show being a murder mystery thriller, Wednesday is not only taken out of her usual Addams Family context, but she also assumes the role of the detective, a role that is notoriously difficult to fully characterize, as summarized here by Ryan Johnson.
The detective is kind of godlike and outside of the sphere of human drama. He kind of exists out and above it. And always reminding myself that the movie needs a real protagonist, which means it needs somebody in the story with skin in the game that the audience is emotionally invested in. And it's that person's victory at the end that's going to actually give a truly satisfying ending.
Based solely on Johnson's description, this seems like a match made in heaven, or hell, I suppose. Wednesday Addams, due to her cold and emotionally flat nature, is heavily removed from human drama, and her keen intellect as well as her omnipotence perfectly complement the role a detective needs to have in a murder mystery. But this presents a clear creative challenge for both the writers and for Jenna Ortega as an actor. How do you make Wednesday assume both the role of detective and protagonist? How do you take such a detached character and make her integral to the story in both action and emotion? I think this is where Ortega's performance really shines. She's able to find ways, even through deadpan delivery and very little facial expression, to subtly cue to the audience the cognitive and emotional dissonance within Wednesday. I'm sure some of it is a result of the Kuleshov effect, the clever trickery of two shots being edited together as a way to display impact and emotion, but I think the effectiveness of even that lies on Ortega's shoulders. Her inner struggle comes out even in minute gestures like breaking eye contact or maintaining eye contact through what appears to be concentrated effort. In speaking in terms of the writing, the show constantly puts Wednesday in scenarios where her limits as a protagonist are tested, exactly as good writing should. She consistently finds herself navigating situations well outside of her comfort zone, like personal relationships, attempting to empathize with human struggles that are alien to her, as well as conundrums that require her to contemplate whether her own self-interest is truly serving the greater good. And every one of those points is best displayed through her relationship with Enid. What promises at the beginning to be nothing but roommate rivalry gradually turns into the strongest connection in the entire series. Enid, being in many ways Wednesday's polar opposite, forces Wednesday into conflict that often only makes her contend with herself. To see someone who, in her mind, stands in direct opposition to her, who is so blatantly caring, actively trying so hard to reach out and be friends, and constantly coming to her defense no matter how little appreciation she receives in return, all puts Wednesday in a place where she has no choice but to accept the fact that she has no good reason to hate Enid as much as she does. To truly consider that her inability to feel for those she rejects is not nearly as objective an observation as she believes it to be, and that it doesn't just protect her from potential threats or push away unwanted distractions, but actively robs her of authentic connection and understanding. It's not revolutionary, it's simple storytelling, but it is powerful. The audience, along with Wednesday, is challenged to step outside of Wednesday's shoes and consider that maybe alone isn't always the best thing to be. Something that I think that those of us who resonate with a character like Wednesday really ought to take to heart. It's the strongest example of Wednesday working as both a protagonist and a detective simultaneously, using her analytical nature to not only enhance the mystery, but also challenge her to look inward. However, the problems begin with the fact that I don't think the show always toes the line between detective and protagonist very gracefully, especially in season 1. Apart from a couple moments in the first episode, Wednesday is often so hyper-competent and detached that it inadvertently robs tension from the story. It's hard to feel any real sense of danger when Wednesday not only escapes every tense situation she finds herself in, but does so with ease. It's hard to feel any sense of emotional gravitas in the moments where Wednesday herself seems to feel nothing at all. And personally, I do find Wednesday a bit suffocating at times as a protagonist. I do think to some degree that's intentional, but that doesn't mitigate the fact that Wednesday's dry wit and sardonic demeanor do get tiring after a while.
You're exhausting.
I know.
This wouldn't be such an issue for me if the show's emotional stakes didn't rest on her a lot of the time, but they do, because despite the show's large ensemble cast, many of the peripheral characters around Wednesday are underbaked. Enid, Eugene, Thing, Morticia Addams, aka Wednesday's mother, and Uncle Fester carry a lot of that first season and even quite a bit of the second. It's so rewarding to see Wednesday forge a friendship with someone like Eugene or rekindle her connection with Uncle Fester. That's the show at its most fun. Wednesday being forced to reconcile her estrangement with her mother or, again, find a strong connection with Enid. That's where the emotional strength is found. Everyone else, though, kinda just gets thrown to the wayside, no matter how interesting they could potentially be. Bianca, in particular, gets frustratingly sidelined in both seasons. I think this line in season 2 is hilariously unintentionally revealing.
Can't believe Bianca had a whole crime drama going on and none of us knew about it.
And the love interests in season 1, oh my god. Romance just flatly does not work for me with a character like Wednesday. She's so cold and unfeeling that it took a lot of hard work and 2 entire seasons worth of writing just to make me believe she was capable of having a good friend. Romance is a bridge too far, I'm afraid. Especially when the 2 guys in her love triangle are just such painfully uninteresting archetypes, the nice guy and the brooding artsy loner. I do appreciate that they at least tried to invert the trope a bit by revealing the nice guy is actually a villain, but even that wasn't enough to make this work, and I feel like the writers knew that going into season 2, because why else would they have to write this ridiculous retcon?
You sensed the monster in me. You fell in love with it.
In general, I feel that Wednesday suffers a lot from typical Netflix bloat, too much of too little. In season 1, this manifests in way too many one-dimensional side characters and the seemingly endless loose threads that connect them all together, but it also presents itself in what I will politely call messy social commentary.
So camps for lycanthropy conversion?
No need to be dramatic, Enid.
You want to send me to conversion therapy for werewolves?
Now hold on, wait. Don't worry, I won't labor the point, mostly because other people like Turb have already done it, but for me personally, the vague gesturing toward marginalization of outcasts as some sort of weak allegory for real-life forms of oppression felt very much like an empty platitude. Generic, vague, to the point of feeling cynically corporate. And of course, a bit ironic coming from a project with Tim Burton's name attached, but that's to be expected at this point. It's hard to be mad at the funny little jabs at colonizers or a simple moral statement like, don't discriminate against people who are different than you, but it's also not enough to really make me care either. Perhaps if it were better fleshed out, I'd passionately dissect how intricately these themes weave throughout the story, or inversely, if the show were pretending to be a grand statement and failing miserably at it, maybe I'd have enough energy to feel vehemently angry. But as is, it doesn't drum up anything in me more than a shrug or an occasional eye roll. Because at the end of the day, this is a dark mystery / teen drama, and I think the show is at its best when it sticks to that, when it focuses its attention toward a mystery with clear emotional stakes, when it finds drama in the relationships that seem to actually matter. And for the first half of season 2, I really thought the show had taken that to heart. The romance was written out of Wednesday's storyline and displaced onto Enid, where it actually made sense. Gone was the large set of underwritten characters, and in its place, a deeper focus on Wednesday and Enid, as well as more incorporation of the Addams family, through direct conflict between Wednesday and her mother, exacerbated by appearances from Uncle Fester and Grandmama, as well as bringing Pugsley into the fold to buddy up with Eugene, and even possibly an engaging storyline for Bianca, and a brand new interesting character in Agnes. No awkward, clumsy pretense of commentary, just an engaging mystery with very real danger directed toward a character I had grown to care about. They even managed to strip away some of Wednesday's omnipotence by robbing her of her psychic abilities, making the mystery that much harder for her to solve. It felt a bit like a clean slate, wiping away the leaves and mud to reveal a solid foundation for this season to build upon. I was absolutely loving it in the first half, but then in the second half it kinda lost me a bit. As I said earlier, Bianca gets very largely sidelined yet again, with easily the least interesting tangential plot in the entire season. I'm not even sure why they bothered to take the time to put this in here. But more egregiously, the scope of the show balloons to the point where it somehow feels even more overstuffed than the first season did. It's not that any of it is particularly hard to follow, despite it being a bit convoluted. It's that again and again, it distracts from what I personally love so much about the show. The endless twists constantly rob the story of its tension, clarity, and most importantly, its emotional punch. The second season has not one, not two, not three, not even four, no, not even five, but 6 villains. 7 if you count Agnes in the first half, but that's more of a red herring foe turned ally kind of thing. Because of this, the show has to constantly resolve plot lines and then rebuild the stakes from the ground up, episode after episode, for pretty much its entire second half. And while this does lead to some great moments like Agnes learning to feel less invisible and become more of her own person, or the explosive ending of the penultimate episode, it never feels like the story is building to one big climax. Instead, it feels like it's desperately scrambling to wrap everything up in time for its impending 4-episode deadline. And in the middle of all of that, the show spends unnecessary time making many transparent, cloying attempts to recapture the show's TikTok appeal rather than telling the damn story. The only one of its several endings that felt truly consequential was thankfully the finale, which was enough to make it all feel worth it. But again, this is Netflix bloat at its worst. If the show were really interested in getting to the heart of what makes season 2 great, it would have pared things down a bit. Focus on Wednesday's relationships with Enid and her mother, keep Grandmama as involved as she currently is, have Pugsley and Eugene running around with Slurp the zombie, keep Agnes's storyline, don't have Wednesday's premonition change throughout the season, and reduce the number of villains down to just one, preferably the one in the finale, and cut literally everything else down to cameos or red herrings at most. I know at this point it probably sounds like I hate the show or something, but my passion in this case actually comes from a place of love. Through my 2-season-long journey, I walked away caring a lot more about this show than I ever expected to, and I feel like my ranting proves that. Wednesday rises to meet its creative challenges in equally creative ways. Sure, there's plenty of faults, a lot of stumbling around, but it's largely an innocent, sweet, and endearing show with some genuinely great elements. My yearning for it to pare itself down is more of a plea for the show to carve a more direct path to the things I really care about, the things I feel really prop the show up. I'm curious to see what you watching this have to say about these takes. I do have a sneaking suspicion that my priorities are not in line with the rest of the fandom, let alone the writer's room, but we'll see. Because I'll absolutely be there for season 3, ready to enjoy it, even if I have to wade through more filler to get to the good stuff. But I'm always going to secretly wish that Wednesday shared the same Addams Family values as me.